And as we've talked about, they will defend themselves. We know that. And they'll cheat. We know that too. Okay, what we don't know is if the government's involved.
Okay.
And we do know that Russian utilities who have excess cheap power are using it to mine Bitcoin. We know that for a fact. Do those utilities have the blessing of the government? And does the government believe in it? We don't know. Mm-hmm. But they are, I mean, I do believe, both Russia and China, from reading their internal papers and hearing their speeches, they are both very much aware of the fiat scam. They really are. I mean, they've as much as said it. I mean, they both know that the U.S. has used fiat dollars to colonize and take advantage of the world. That part of the U.S.'s global power is their ability to print money to buy resources and to control the dollar and to use the dollar as a weapon. They both know that and they've said it. So with that as a backdrop, they both trended towards gold. China has hated on Bitcoin, and so I don't think they're smart enough to be doing it internally. But Russia, they might actually be doing it. I just don't know. Let's break it into two big buckets. There's the exchange bucket, and then there's the kind of savings and asset bucket. Okay, we all need money for exchange. You need to pay for your gas, pay for your food, pay for your coffee, whatever. You got to pay your bills. That's the exchange function of money, and you earn money and you turn around and you spend money, and so. If its value fluctuates a little bit in that time frame, big deal. It doesn't really matter. But then ultimately you've got your savings and your assets. And so you got to decide, where are you going to put those? And so, I mean, if the government, if they say you got to pay your taxes in CBDCs, well, then I'm going to have to briefly own some CBDC to pay my taxes. Okay, fair enough. But I'm not going to save in CBDCs because it's something they can print to excess. And so, the point I guess I'm trying to make is, I think the intelligent people in the world, and ultimately most people get the joke and realize that, that fiat currency is losing value consistently. And as that trend grows, people will go to Bitcoin. They'll go to Bitcoin, they'll go to gold, they'll go to property. Nobody's going to be stupid enough to buy bonds from a set of governments that have proven that they can't manage the currency correctly. So I think CBDCs could very easily be a parallel system to gold and Bitcoin as savings technology in a way. I would think so. Yeah. I mean, in other words, let's say you were paid in CBDCs, you would immediately, if I were paid in CBDCs, if they forced the whole world into CBDCs, I would immediately exchange. There'd be a CBDC gold exchange rate or a CBDC Bitcoin exchange rate. I'd immediately change it and I'd save in the hard currency. That's just Gresham's law. And I think, again, unless they outlaw or massively tax the alternatives, the system they've got, and this is why they're trying to block the exits. This is why they don't want, the choke point came around as a result of the fact that they don't want people exiting their system, right? They don't want you to go to the safe haven of Bitcoin. They don't want you to go to the safe haven of gold. They shit on them every chance they get. And yet, we all know that we can't trust their currency to hold value because of the way they behave. We know that for a fact, and that's only going to get worse. And really the only thing, Michelle, that standing between us and hyperinflation is everybody coming to the conclusion that I've come to, which is that these currencies are doomed. And so as a result of that, do I hold dollars? Of course I hold dollars. I need to pay my bills. Everything every asset, I get paid a certain amount of money, I pay my bills, I have something left over. The leftover goes into gold or Bitcoin. It's always worth thinking about. You've got to think outside of the box. I'm sure you and maybe some of your listeners have read a book called The Mandibles, which is really a very interesting story of a family that lived through the currency collapse, a futuristic family lived through a currency collapse in the United States. It's an eye-opener.
Right.
Have you read it? Are you familiar with it? Have you read it? But the woman who wrote it is very intelligent. And it, as each step unfolded, I thought to myself, well, that makes sense. That could happen. Mm-hmm. And so it's, to me, for sound money people, The Mandibles is kind of is a horror story of how this might unfold. Hopefully it doesn't look like that. In this case, in the Bitcoin case, it was, 14 years old. And I think we estimate that about 10% of the world, or 10% of the first world, owns Bitcoin or is involved in Bitcoin in some form. And so, and certainly more than that are aware of it. But I'm talking about people who've actually bought some.